So I hope there won't be any.
So nice to have you.
Oh, okay.
It's so nice to have you with us. Uh, Before we start, we have just a formal welcome and introduction.
Okay.
So please, Nikita, are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm there.
Okay, Nikita, please go ahead with your introduction.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
I mean,
Good evening.
good evening.
Yeah.
Okay, I will start with the formal introduction now.
Yeah. Okay.
Good evening and a resounding virtual cheer to each and every one of you. A warm and heartfelt welcome to all of you. Today is a special day as we gather here to a yet another episode of Cultural Studies Research Forum, CSRF. I am Niketa on behalf of Team Balance. I am truly honored to speak before you all and address this esteemed gathering. CSRF is a non-profit enterprise started by Valets, formerly TESS, inaugurated on 13th April 2021. That is largely operated with students' initiatives. CSRF aims to promote free public lectures and discussions in various aspects of research and to increase the awareness of students in cultural studies. From new research areas to new literatures, from current advances in multidisciplinary studies to the latest theoretical terminology, from poetry to dance, music, and food. CSRF is a happening place to gather and experience this rich diversity. CSRF also serves as an active assembly to enhance one's communication skills, expressivity, critical thinking, and even suggests future avenues for critical research. Several engaging talks are conducted under CSRF, which entertains as well as enriches our views on different cultures and practices. Today at CSRF, I and Team Valets welcome our chief guest, the former principal of Lady Amrita Bai Daga College, a college for women, Dr. Shyamala Nair ma'am, to talk on this subject, comparative literature of borders and borderlessness. She has more than 4 decades of teaching experience in literature and botany in colleges and universities. She is also among the visiting faculty at Savitribai Phule Pune University. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone, for gracing this event with your presence. Once again, a warm welcome to all of you. Let's make this event one to remember. Thank you. Over to you, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Glitches, so in between the voice is going up. Can you hear?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible, but the voice is breaking.
Is there some? Yeah. Can you hear me properly? Because I can't hear.
Yes,
I can hear you only erratically.
We can hear you, ma'am. You can
Okay,
start.
fine. So, good evening, everyone. And I'm privileged to have been invited by Kalyani and her group of students and researchers in this CSR forum. Love to speak to you in a physical forum.
Your voice is not clear
It's like
enough.
a virtual thing, and it's always like, are you there? Are you not there? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can
Ma'am,
hear
in
you,
between,
but your voice is not clear.
exactly,
Okay.
in between, the voice is breaking, ma'am.
Oh. Just let me check the
I
connection.
think it's because of weather.
I think so too, because it's raining here. I think so too. So what I'll do is I'll quickly get into the presentation mode, so you can hear me as well as read what I've put in the presentation. Is that okay?
Absolutely, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Is that better?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. So, today I've chosen this topic more than choosing. I was so asked by Kalyani whether I can do on this topic. So I chose this, and I think with Koel, I discussed what exactly the title ought to be. And I was not sure of what levels or what my target audience was. And I believe most of you are research students, some of you are students. Well, we are always students, whatever. So here, I thought of bringing in borders and borderlessness, particularly because this whole area of comparative literature is a very evolving area, and there is no definition to the entire thing. It evolves, and as it evolves, it seems to be that it takes on different positions in different places. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Properly.
Yeah, okay, fine enough then. What we are going to do is to have a broad overview of what exactly comparative literature is. And I'm not going to speak about the historical significance of it. Rather, I would want to do something that could perhaps nudge you into thinking what comparative literature can be in futures. So, right now, when you think about comparative literature, I'm sure all of you have a foundational knowledge of what exactly comparative literature means. And it means differently in different countries. It means differently in different places, according to the schools of thought that we have regionally and otherwise. Even as world literature, even as Vishwa Sahitya, as we know our own Rabindranath Tagore speaking about Vishwa Sahitya. So, accordingly, I would start this thing with a scope of what this lecture is all going to be. So, we would review what borders and borderlessness means in comparative literature studies through the ideas of globalization, through the ideas of cosmopolitanism, through the ideas of transnationalism, through what we understand as unity in diversity, through what we now know as intertextuality and intermediality. And from here on, where we shall, as I told you earlier, I would like to nudge you into thinking of different ways of looking at comparative literature. So, what then were the early precursors like? Just to give you a kind of a link to what we are going to do. So it all started, this borderlessness, with Goethe, who actually happened to be a German, of course, and I'm sure all of you know Goethe. So the whole idea of wealth literature, world literature, which he seems to have, a germ of an idea, which seems to have come out through a conversation with a French scholar called Ampere. It has been recorded, it has been documented everywhere. But the whole idea of wealth literature did not come as a sort of a sudden eureka moment, but it came through his idea of nationalism. And the whole thing of, paradoxically, from a very nationalistic idea into a broadened scope of world literature. And this is exactly what we see, the ideas, the germ of the imagination of what world literature or comparative literature is going to be. So his ideas were very fragmented. His ideas, which he shared with the French scholar Jean Jacques Ampere, was recorded in conversations with Goethe by Eckermann. These are available everywhere, and we see these are the germs of this whole genre of world literature as we see it later. Now, in our own times and in India, we had also a similar idea of Vishwa Sahitya being, introduced and initiated through Tagore's ideas of what exactly Vishwa Sahitya ought to be. Again, a kind of universalism, and maybe to a certain extent, his idea of Vishwa Sahitya came through what we were going through in terms of post-colonialism, in terms of colonialism, not colonialism, wherein the idea of hegemony, the idea of one language being better than the other was always around. So Tagore, in fact, wanted to speak about what he would think in terms of a universal literature, which he termed as Vishwa Sahitya.
Coil, can you remove them or tell them to switch off their mic? Sorry,
No,
ma'am.
no,
Sorry for the
actually,
Please
mistake.
mute
sorry,
your.
ma'am, sorry.
Coil, please mute all the participants.
Yes, Dada.
So then again, we have all these reflections on how there could be something called world literature through perhaps this germ of an idea which Kant had already, anticipated through idea of the universal history with a cosmopolitan purpose. Now, I will not go into the history or the starting points, except to just let you know and to catch up with the later
Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Now
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah. So yeah. So we had. So then, what then is this world literature all about, and how or why is it different from comparative literature? It isn't different from comparative literature because these are the seeds of before the entire idea of what exactly comparative literature should be, a part of the genesis, a part of the evolution of a whole idea of comparative literature. So, world literature, according to Damarosh, and Damarosh is one of those leading thought figures in comparative literature, he speaks about world literature as a global phenomenon. Mark his use of global in the year 2020. We have come away from world literature into something global. Cultural expression of an emerging world system and the sum total of world literatures from every period since the invention of writing. That is what comparative literature is, and what we know of it as. An experience differently, it's an experience differently depends on the culture of the place. And literary studies have undergone a sea change today by the expansive and disruptive forces of globalization. So here we have the idea of what exactly comparative literature has come to be, although it has come from different schools of thought, and each one has added to it in different ways. So you have, and I'm sure you've already learned about the German school, the American school, the French school, the Russian school, each according to their. German started with Romanticism, with the idea of nationhood, and then went on to world literature, and sort of got in many other literatures and became one with the European literature. The American school of thought, again, very liberal. French, what they would call, or what they wanted to call as crypto nationalism. We are the best. and then Russian slanting towards socialism, whereas you have Americans through their liberal capitalistic ideas, which came through even in their literature. But in India, we were already a microcosm of, so many literature. Even within our own, within single languages, we had literatures. For example, they call it Tamil literatures through history. You have other dialects, almost from around 221 spoken languages. We still have 24, including Indian English, recognized by the Sahitya Academy. So in our own way, we actually in India, we do not have in any way to think about other schools of thought. We are our own school into ourselves. And we have Guru Bhagat Singh talking about differential multilogue, speaking about the number of languages without hegemony, without one language being higher than the other, giving equal status to every language. And that perhaps is also the beauty of Indian languages, and as we are a comparative literature of our own. China and Asia also have their own civilization-based, history-based ideas of comparative literatures. So both within borders. So when you think about these schools, we have these schools as borders with specific borders, and then the bridging. And of course, in our times now to come, and as I will let you know later, we become a kind of oneness despite our diversity. So the comparative literature here across everything, including trying to, cross over borders, cross time, across languages, across genres, you name it, we cross it over, and we enlist them into what we understand, and in order to study and forward what we understand about language, about comparative literature. So again, I would never ever forget Barthes in every way, in every lecture that I, because Barthes is one who had already anticipated these connections which are interwoven, because of which we can compare and contrast. An illimitable tissue of connections and associations evoked in the mind of the reader. It entirely depends upon the reader's sensibility. So whether it's reader friendly or writerly, it depends on the reader's sensibility and background knowledge to make all the necessary connections in order to get the most out of a text. So as he says, the death of the author and the birth of the reader, it is the umbilical cords are all cut from the author, and the book takes its birth afresh within the minds of the readers. And we have Kristeva then, and adding to what one would call certain theoretical concepts in comparative literature. She brought in the whole idea of intertextuality from one to the other, an intermingling and weaving, as Bakhtin had already foreseen. Texts are woven into each other. No text is anyway isolated. It's a mosaic of thoughts. It's a mosaic of quotations. Any text is the absorption or transformation of another. As we've seen already, Eliot's Tradition and Individual Talent says the same thing. So then, what is this whole idea of intertextuality upon which seems to be pivotal in understanding what exactly comparative literature is? So intertextuality is something, and very basically, it could be retellings, it could be deliberate, it could be optional, it could be accidental. And accordingly, the use of optional intertextuality may be something as simple as the parallel characters or plot lines, adaptations, Shakespeare adaptations, anything of these, like Maris Conde's Windward Heights, which is also a rethinking and an adaptation of Wuthering Heights, all a mosaic of allusions. It could be an accident. Often when reading a book or viewing a film, a memory is nudged in the viewer's mind. Often a writer uses a quotation, an allusion, a pastiche, or a parody. And as we hear a rabbit hole of the internet, when we discuss the rabbit hole of the internet, is reminiscent of Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. So when we think in terms of comparative literature, it is not actually just comparative literature. It has a wide-reaching effects into everything that we do. Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart is also an allusion from The Second Coming by W.B. Yeats. Now, I like this pollen of ideas. Now, many times we say an author is actually influenced by previous authors. And many times we find that people, great people, think alike. Here we have what one would say, Faulkner answering in his own terms a question which he was asked whether he is influenced by James Joyce. And what he says is something worth understanding, because that's how comparative literature works. He says, there must be a sort of pollen of ideas floating in the air, which fertilizes, similarly, minds here and there which have not had direct contact. So it's just a pollen of ideas, which perhaps was not even, it's so accidental. You didn't even know that you wrote the same thing as the other, or in a similar fashion. There is something, how do we understand comparative literature? Many times we look for these methods of pastiche and parody. They are intertextual in nature. Parody is called ironic quotation. Pastiche is appropriation or intertextuality. Now, what these are certain tools of comparative literature through the lens of which we use in order to understand what it's all about. So, yes, a pastiche can be like a quilt, a multicolored quilt, can be a combination of multiple genres. We have so many examples. Margaret Atwood for you, William Burroughs, science fiction, bringing in science perhaps, Umberto Eco. So most of them use pastiche, bits and pieces from here and there. And we know that reading Shakespeare and his plays is a wonderful place where we can take so many so the Wasteland, for one, you read it and you see that, as one of the critics said, that each and every line, or most of the lines that Eliot wrote in his Wasteland, have come from other minds. And that's how if we compare each one of them, the lines have elsewhere its origin, many of them. Now, along with this idea of intertextuality is also what we come across, what one would the concept of along with this idea of intertextuality is this question of transmediality, which was coined by Erna Rajeski, and she talks about intermediality. As much as texts move forward and backwards, as much as authors are influenced by other texts and by stories from within and without, so also these ideas travel from one media to the other, across media. And we have now, especially in our digital times, words like transmedial. And these could be intramedial within one medium, or it could be intermediate, from book to television, from screen to book, and vice versa, or n number of times in different ways through different media. So intermediality occurs only within one medium, and whereas intermedia along with others. So comparative literature has now opened up into such different uh, kinds of media, and has exposed itself for better, understanding, or for better uh, uh, exposure through media. So much so, more than books, we find Netflix and other media as something that is so easily available. And so rather than reading a book many times, it's just that. And these mediations, remediations, intermediations, and intermediality then spawn a completely different kind of comparative literature. Texts into media. So here, transmedial also, there are so many spin-offs, for example, into gaming, and you find the instead of the text, the media seems to, spawn itself into different kinds of platforms. So we see that transmedia storytelling is a technique of unfolding a story across multiple media platforms, with each new text making a distinctive and valuable contribution to the whole. So, the same way as Eliot spoke to us about tradition and individual talent, so nothing is lost. It only makes a dent, or it makes a presence wherever it is. So we cannot ever forget the past, whether the history of books, the history of media, because everything has something else to speak about without losing its link to the past. So here is a parody. There's also something called detonema. Yeah. And right now we are actually in a threshold where we talk about cocktail literature, a literature which has come in because of from so many different streams, and mediated through so many different platforms. But we can't close our eyes to that. We have to remember that these are ways of approaching literature, and that this is how it will be in the future. We can't completely close our minds to the kind of digital nomads that we are, going from platform to platform. And the cocktail of literature that is, sometimes we don't even know whether we have read it or whether we have seen it. That's how different we are, and yet it's all literature. So here is what we are and what we are now, watching, reading, assimilating, and understanding literature in our own different ways. So from now until now, we have seen what comparative literature can do, and how it seems to have evolved from something that was so easily understandable, perhaps, and could be understood in terms of regional, or in terms, it's so easy to say it is comparative literature is something across borders, across countries, across times, across genres. But is that such an easy definition eludes us now? It's not easy for us to understand it from just that point of view. It seems so absolutely narrow because it's expanded exponentially. And many times we understand things through the screen, through the script, through dance and through music, through performance. So you can't really distinguish it, or rather say that it's just the books that give us what comparative literature is all about. It's so many different. It's multifaceted, multidimensional, and so then what have we done with comparative literature? There's a whole sense of absolute pessimism now, which has come into the academia, and many academics are now fuming about the idea that there is no comparative literature. And I think because they feel it's so end defined, and because they feel that they have given comparative literature a straitjacket, they need to come out of it. Once you come out of the straitjacket, we can understand where it is going. You cannot stop comparative literature from evolving. It has evolved, and we have to understand the change. For example, American Academy, American Comparative Literature Association, they've brought so many saying that the idea there also.
Hello,
A
ma'am.
little bit of it, wherein the chair is gone, and the amount has been
Ma'am.
used for other purposes. So that, can you hear me?
Now you are audible, ma'am. In between, the voice was breaking. So
Oh, okay. Right now?
right now it's
Yeah.
okay.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Please continue.
Yeah. Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Now it is totally audible. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. It's clear. Yeah, but it's the weather here. It's raining outside. So yeah, perhaps it's the weather. Because of the weather, I can't. Maybe it's breaking. The voice is breaking. All right. So here we have what we call transnational literature, which talks
Guys, please wait for a minute. Ma'am will join us. Friends, sorry for the inconvenience. Uh, Please wait for few seconds. It's for weather, you know that. So
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And the
So
screen is visible also.
yeah, I lost the link at one time. Can you see the presentation too?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Sorry for that. I don't know. Again, the
It's
connection seems unstable. Yeah, I hope it doesn't go off. So I'm sorry. I think I stopped here, but I went on speaking, and then I found that it was closed. I mean, there was no uh, connection. Okay. So I brought in this transnational literature only to speak about borderlessness and a kind of composite identity which seems to be very taken for granted in our times. So a composite identity is no more of a shock to anyone. We have an identity which may not be regional, may not belong to one, like, for example, the diaspora. A composite identity is based on the birthplace of one's parents, one's place of residence, the work, the language. Here we cross borders and we sort of become borderless in terms of adapting a country as our own. So there are many ways in which can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. You are audible.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So the social status of academics, so many things come into when we cross over borders into an area of absolute borderlessness. So I think we finished with this. Sorry. So as I was saying, I don't know how much of was audible, but as I was saying, we come to this important part of the entire idea of comparative literature, wherein most academics fear that the comparative literature department will be closed. They have some idea that it may not outlive the other departments. And this is because theory has taken over, literary theory has taken over, and not only literary theory, cultural studies has been some way expanding its wings, and people are right now reading and writing everything under this whole idea of cultural studies. Like you have a cultural research forum right now. So here, comparative literature has been subsumed into this whole thing. So much so, it is no longer a niche department. It has become one of the many. It has been absorbed into the rest of it. So much so, people are a little upset, and they're not sure whether they can, they will ever survive as comparatists. So particularly the American academics and the Department of they have felt it badly, and you find both Susan Basnett and Spivak talking about the death of a discipline. Susan Basnett, through her translation studies, had in fact was somebody who gave a lot to what our ideas of comparative literature. Spivak, for her part, conceives in her book The Death of a Discipline, which in fact was a lecture series, which later she brought it out as a book in 2006, conceives of a book as an agony she attributes to the same general conditions which her British colleague, meaning Susan Basnett, had already described. She argues that comparatists must not only dare to cross borders, but also to attempt to recuperate meaningful readings. This is an attempt to revive everything that is lost in comparative literature. But they are hurtling towards a whole idea of getting it back, not in the same way as it was before, but in renewed terms. So you find this happening, the whole ideology. There's been a lot of methodical storms, which has in fact affected our idea of comparative literature. It has been caught between theory, literary theory, critical theory, and cultural studies. The main enemy is also deconstruction. So, as Color speaks about it, argues for a privileged, if not exclusive, relationship between literary theory and comparative literature. So, again, it's a question of hegemony. Is theory higher than comparative literature? Is comparative literature? So it all depends. So, postmodernism seems to try to negotiate between Scylla of deconstruction and the Charybdis of cultural, post-colonial, and globalization studies. Defending the centrality of literature is what Color is hoping for. He contends that it is important to engage in a practice of reading literally, not through the lens of deconstruction, not through just the idea of cultural or post-colonial or globalized ways of thinking or looking. Now, therefore, comparative literature, whither now? Where will it go? And as Susan Bassnett says, at the end of the 20th century, today, comparative literature is in one sense, is dead, she said. Gayatri Spivak talks about death of a discipline, 2003, revised again in 2006. The last gasp of a dying discipline. They are absolutely pessimistic about the future of comparative literature. She argues that comparatists must not only dare to cross borders, but also attempt to recuperate meaningful readings. Spivak's Death of a Discipline, which was a part of the 2000 lectures, includes discussions of American writers like Toni Morrison, Gertrude Stein, W.B. Du Bois, along with Joseph Conrad, Virginia Woolf, Mahashweta Devi, and Tayyib Sahil. So then what are we aiming at? So the comparative literature, therefore, has evolved in India. The scene in India is very different. Has evolved in India in symbiosis with these national literatures department, even as they have reached out to European, American, and East Asian literature and theory. What we see in the Jadavpur Journal, which was in fact Jadavpur University, the Comparative Literature Association, the department was started by Buddhadev Bose, and this journal is still alive and is still, in fact, allows people to write similar articles as it was there before. One issue, number 28, for instance, tells us what kind of articles were there. It is still alive, and it consisted of 8 articles. 5 of 8, yes, 5 of the 8 essays are explicitly concerned with one or more Indian literatures, only sometimes in relation to non-Indian works. So here you have Beers Jain's Cultural Relativism and Perspectives in Naipal Chowdhury and Foster, C.T. Indira's Cultural Relativism in Tamil Fiction. I alluded
Ma'am, you are not audible, ma'am.
Yes, and dear, please wait because of the lost connection. It is happening. Ma'am,
Yes. Again, so sad. I lost connection.
yeah, ma'am. It's okay. We can understand because of bad weather it is happening. Uh, you can start over now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to start again. Yeah. 1 minute. Yeah. Yeah. Can you see my screen? Can you see?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. You can see my screen, isn't it? So as I told you, we had this Jadavpur University journal, which is still going on, wherein you have
Ma'am, you are muted.
Dear ma'am is not muted. It's because of again connection. Uh, thank you all. Thank you all for your patience. Please have some more. Okay, ma'am, please unmute yourself now.
Yeah, I've unmuted it.
Yeah.
But this seems to,
Sorry guys. I think okay, ma'am is there. Friends, if you have any questions, queries, or anything regarding this session, just put on the chat box. After the talk, we will have your queries. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am,
yeah,
can you hear me, ma'am?
yeah,
Yeah.
I can. I'm just sharing this thing. Can you?
Ma'am, one thing you can do, just turn
I'll,
off
I'm,
your video.
yes, I am doing that.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I'll just share the screen.
yeah. Now it is visible.
Yeah. Can you see the slide?
Yes, ma'am.
You can, isn't it? Yeah. So yes, again, so we have Gabriel Okara towards the evolution of an African language for African literature. And of course, Damarosh speaks about this Indian university, which is still active in terms of comparative literature essays. So again, yes, I think we have finished with this. So then where are we going from now on? So Gayatri Spivak, when she speaks in her book, she speaks about the number of the whole idea of comparative literature dying its own death. But we have people like Elon Musk now speaking about going to Mars and other planets. So in a way, Gayatri Spivak brings in what she calls planetarity. And the whole idea of Earth, not global, but not globalization, but she talks about planetarity, wherein she speaks about now we may have literatures with people writing from other planets. I mean, it's a nice way of thinking that it will not die a death, but it will evolve. It will become something else in the future for the better. So then we are all here, and we don't know, with the advent of artificial intelligence and a very sensitive artificial intelligence, or a very sentient artificial intelligence, we as digital nomads would be one with the cocktail cultures, datafied, vectorized literature. We may move into realms which we don't know, but exciting realms. With AI, we may have better times perhaps, but we cannot afford to forget where we came from, where Goethe told us about wealth literature, where Tagore speaks about Vishwa Sahitya. The same thing through a whole idea of Genesis, and we don't know where it's hurtling to, but definitely much more exciting times ahead. So I think with all the confusions and interruptions, where I thought I was still speaking, and as I told you, it would have been so nice to have all of you in front of me so that I know when I have been understood, when I'm not understood. I still belong to the old school where I feel that I should be looking at those eureka moments in your eyes. But we have to, as I told you, equip ourselves and educate ourselves in digital times. So perhaps I hope I have made some kind of an interest in you regarding the futures of comparative literature. So if you have any questions, if you need to interact, I think we could open it up right now before
Sure,
we lose connection again.
Sure, ma'am. Already we have two queries in our chat box.
Yeah.
One is from Mohini.
Yeah.
Let me read it out. Can any text be intertextual if it has parody and pastiche? Also, if it is
can
a
you please repeat it? Can you please repeat it? I didn't get it.
Yeah. Can any text be intertextual if it has parody and pastiche? Also, if it is a film adaptation, then
Yes.
is it intertextual?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course it is. It's a question
Mohini.
from Mohini, no? Yes, of course it is. See,
Yes.
intertextuality is a very broad term. So it can have adaptations, it can have parody. These are the tools of intertextuality. It can have pastiche. It can have any kinds of, things which we have taken from somewhere and put it into another. It is intertextuality. Yes. Does it answer your question?
Mohini, are you there?
Okay.
I think we got her answer. Okay. Another question is from Masarat Jarin. What are the prospects of comparative literature surviving in individual and on comprehensive level? Does it offer any future for new researchers?
Okay. I didn't get the first part of it. Can you please repeat that?
Yeah. What are the prospects of comparative literature surviving in individual and on comprehensive level?
On comparative level, and whether there's any scope for researchers, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. There's ample scope. First and foremost, the last part of the question, there's ample scope for researchers. It just depends upon how we flex it And regarding whether it will remain the same in terms of individual, yes, it will. It is up to us to see how we can keep it so, and it is up to us to flex it to whatever we want to, in terms of we can even though I say borders and borderlessness, no literature ever loses its identity. It is just that, and we can the whole idea of comparative literature evolving does not mean it loses its identity over a period of time. We can easily go back to it and look at it from that context and that period. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Next question we have from Meghna Dotto. What exactly is the difference between intermediality and transmediality?
Yeah, good question, because that is something even I had to look into doubly. And one thing is that intermediality is between two media. Okay, two media, one and the other. For example, from one medium, like for example, from an audio to television to print. So this is intermediality. When you talk about transmediality, you speak about different kinds of media. For example, gaming. Getting into gaming, for example, you have some a movie and that spawns a game. Did I give? I mean, is it answered?
Yes. Yes. I think so, ma'am.
I hope
Thank
so.
you.
I hope so. Yeah.
No, ma'am. Actually, it's totally relatable. I can also feel it. Himal, do you want to speak with ma'am? I mean, do you just ask the question?
Yes, ma'am, I can. Namaste,
Yeah,
ma'am.
please go.
Namaste, boliye.
Ji. Ma'am, my question was like I have this idea of doing research on Mahesh Dattani ji and comparing him with the playwrights of another countries like
Yes.
Africa and all. But
Yes.
but I want to understand, like I'm not able to find the writers. Maybe it's on my side that we are not made to study much of the international writers.
Right.
So can you suggest me someone whom I can look up to?
Okay. Mahesh Dattani is dance like a man,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Yeah,
Tara
and
dance like a
more
man.
of it.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
the post-colonial sites. Like he has written so
Post-colonial.
much on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You mean post-colonial side of?
Criticism, ma'am.
Yeah. But
The
then you have a number of African authors. You have Ngugi Wa Thiong. You have Wolso Inca,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You
And ma'am,
have,
yes,
hello?
please continue.
Yeah,
Yes,
Wolso
ma'am,
Inca.
continue.
Then the one who wrote The Center Does Not Hold.
Yes.
Gabriel Okara is there. Yeah. And the best thing about African literature is also it has a very unique stand. Unlike it is also not hybridized as much because of their cultural identities and because of post-colonialism. You have something called negritude. You have so much which you can look into in African literatures, which can in fact be used for our own. I mean, to compare with our own. Forget Dattani, there are lots more also. I mean, cultural identities can be, compared and contrasted. For example, a simple thing like rivers. Okay, a simple thing like a theme on rivers. If you rivers, if I'm not rivers in different. You see the number of poems which have been written on rivers across borders, and you will find so much to compare as well as to contrast. And so much emotional investment has gone into just a small thing called rivers. I wonder whether including you can do so much more if you think about it, whether it's poetry, whether, for example, Arundhati Roy speaks about Aminam, about the river. There's a film which is also called a river passes through it all. So many of them. I mean, if you can check this out, I'm sure Mahesh Dattani, and you'll get quite a few African writers who perhaps write in post-colonial terms.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, a similar question. There was a small question also.
Yeah.
Can we analyze the plays via rasas, like all the
yes, Dhwani.
Yes.
And rasa. Yes. That is comparative criticism, in fact, isn't it? Even including, of course, you can take up fiction or novels, and then perhaps I didn't tell you, but then I had to speak about, for example, if I'm sure some of you must have read Tagore's Gora.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, most of you must have, isn't it? So yeah, so there is the kind of hybrid sensibility, the kind of. So if you think in terms of your Dhwani and Western aesthetics, or you think in terms of rasas and Western aesthetics, you can compare that too. Have I answered?
Okay.
You have something more?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, ma'am. Thanks
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
Here we have a few questions more. Okay, let me load.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Okay, someone wants to speak. Okay.
Ma'am,
Please go ahead.
Shall I ask my question, ma'am?
Yeah.
Yes, Aishwarya, you can go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. This is
Good evening.
Aishwarya, and I have posted a question asking how does migration or border studies different from diasporic literature? Like how can one think of such idea?
Oh, okay. Good question. Migration and diaspora studies. See, migration is a process. Okay. Whereas diaspora, where you have already those people who already there, been naturalized for quite some time. You have something called syncretization too, isn't it? Yeah. So it isn't different, but they're two different. You can flex it to different ways of thinking about it. Migration is something of a process, whereas in the case of diaspora literature, people have been naturalized in their surroundings, and sometimes even have been syncretized. You know what is syncretization? Almost like taking up the culture.
Assimilation, no?
Yeah. Does it answer your question?
Yes, very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, next. Okay, is there? Please wait. We have a few questions in our chat box. Okay. Ria is asking, ma'am, is it possible for someone to reproduce the exact line someone else has written in a different century or a different place without referring to any text or online sources? What is it called? Can you explain this in the light of intertextuality?
Acha, okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, yes, because I can't see any one of you here. I mean, even you're the same. Okay. So what refer to, for example, I don't know if you've seen that slide where I spoke about Poland being fertilizing without knowing. Without knowing, you may in fact write the same things, but not the exact words may not be there. Right. Hello?
Right, ma'am. Right, ma'am.
Yeah. Is that what she asked me? Because it wasn't very clear.
Ma'am, let me read once again for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it possible for someone to reproduce the exact line someone else has written in a different century or a different place without referring to any text or online sources? What is it called? Can you explain this in the light of intertextuality?
I don't know what it is called. Then maybe I don't know about it. But there is I think it was Huxley who spoke about having. I don't know whether you know about the 100 monkeys typing on a typewriter. Perhaps could produce all the Shakespearean plays at random. So there's a theory. It is plausible, but I wonder whether there's a name or a term to it. But this was Huxley saying that it could be possible because without knowing and unconsciously, you may write a few lines, but I don't think the entire thing would ever come in. It's an accidental retelling. Remember, if you remember some of my slides which talk to you about optional, conscious, accidental.
Okay, ma'am. Next question we have from Anjali. What is cocktail literature?
What is?
Or cocktail? What is cocktail
literature? Okay.
And cocktail culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when I was writing this, making the presentation, I don't know if it is there on Google, but it came to me accidentally. Now, if it is there in Google, I don't know. But it came to me accidentally because in the morning I read a paper, the Mint paper, Mint Lounge, and I saw a cocktail used for other things. So I said, see, what we are and what we are living in is a cocktail of cultures, isn't it? Where you have a mix of everything. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. You are audible.
Yeah. So we are a mix of everything. It is, and we are such a mix, and we are such hybrid cultures around here. So can you, when you go to America, when people have gone there to America, you somehow take their cultures as your own. You go from state to state. You sort of unconsciously take on the cultures. So when you're a mixed culture, going from country to country, learning languages or reading other books, this is what I meant by cocktail of cultures and a cocktail of literature.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
And Kuhu, I hope you also got your answer because you have the same question. Yes.
Ma'am.
Who is it?
Ma'am, I'm Anjali.
Okay, Anjali, please go ahead.
Ma'am, intertextuality and...
Can you speak a little louder, Anjali?
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, I'm saying that intertextuality and cocktail literature is same thing, ma'am.
No. Intertextuality is when bits and pieces of things are either through allusion or through parody are within a text. A cocktail cultures and cocktail, by that I meant that when you have a mix of understanding within, for example, a book which has so many different people from different cultures coming in. Okay, perhaps that I would speak of as mixed culture or cocktail cultures. See, as I told you, this is again accidental. I just took the term cocktail and brought it as cultures in order to let you know that we are digital nomads. We hold the earth in our palms, on our screens, on our computer screens, right? Do you have to go to other places? You have everything on your Google account and Google search engines. So when one thinks about it, what I meant by cocktail cultures is that we are able to assimilate and understand different cultures. Here is where borderlessness comes in. I hope I got you right. I hope I've made myself clear.
Okay, ma'am, I got it.
Thank you again, ma'am.
Yeah.
Few more questions.
Yeah.
Vishwendu is asking, what is the prospect of the cross-border literature within our country?
Within our country, okay.
I mean, he means to say interstate, actually.
Yeah. We have regional cultures to a certain extent. We have become cosmopolitan. We have become, even India, we have cultures which are different from state to state, from region to region. So this is both, although there's been migration, there's been a kind of sense of oneness, a kind of sense of Indianness. Still, if you say Tamil literature and Kashmiri literature, okay, you said borders, no difference, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't it? So, for example, even dialects for that matter, uh, from Marathi literature and perhaps any other literature, for example, of any tribes, perhaps. These would be within India. We have 24 recognized languages, and we can compare between the literatures of any of these languages. That is what Sahitya Academy also, has let us know, because they each language is as it is of the same level. There is no hierarchy in all these languages. So you can compare with one language, with literature of one language with the literature of another language.
Yeah, right, ma'am.
That would be cross-border within India.
I hope, Vishwendu, you got your answer. So we are moving into the next question. Saurav is asking, ma'am, can you put some light on literature of precarity or precarious literature?
I didn't get that.
Precarity.
Precarity.
Or, yes, ma'am.
Precarity, what's the spelling?
Precarity.
I have no idea. I'm so sorry. I don't have any idea of such. What is it actually? I would like to know.
Saurav, are you there? Would you like to speak with ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. This is Gaurav here.
Yeah.
Actually, I just want to do something, do some research on some, unique topic. So I met one of my professors, and he told me that why won't you choose this literature of precarity? That means precarious actually basically deals about those people who are homeless and who
You
live their
mean
life on footpath.
precarity?
Yes,
Precarious.
precarity. Yes, precarious. I wrote it down.
Oh, it's coming from precarious. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, I've heard of deprivation literature.
It's precarious.
Is that also? I haven't heard of precarious literature, but I've heard of deprivation literature, where somebody is deprived or perhaps challenged. That kind. I'm yet to. Yeah.
Actually, he suggested me a book by Catherine Wu. That's the Behind the Beautiful Forever.
Behind the Beautiful.
Forever.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't.
It's okay.
I haven't read it. I'll look into it.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Saurav, for giving us a new idea
Yeah,
that
we
there is
checked.
precarious thing and all. I also didn't know about it.
Yeah.
And Shreya is asking, ma'am,
Yes.
most important examples of British and Indian literature that are usually compared.
That are?
Usually compared in this comparative literature.
For example, I did speak.
Actually, she is asking for example which can be compared to British and English literature, like this.
Oh, okay. I mean, she wants new ones. You want new ones, or you want, for example, you see what you do is please check out Jadavpur University Journal. It has so many
Shreya, are you
insights.
there?
Yeah. Okay. It has so many insights, and it will give you the possible direction into what exactly should be chosen, because it's a lot of them. It's not just a few. It also depends upon what theme she would like to take, what area she would like to follow. Yeah, right.
Yes, ma'am. She is
Have I
saying
answered? Yeah, have I
thank
answered?
you.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, in the chat box. Okay. So I think we don't have any questions left.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening,
Amit
ma'am.
Pandey.
Can I ask something?
Okay.
Uh,
Anil.
uh,
Okay.
yeah,
Please.
ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Yeah.
It was just a general question. I was very curious about, you talked about AI thing, right?
Yeah, right.
And and presently, we have AI entering
Chatbot.
into, yeah, I mean, AI entering into even creative fields like, painting, AI
Absolutely.
art,
Yes.
news writing, of course.
Yes.
And
Yes.
they're talking about publishing books, multiple books in a day, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, what do you think would be the factor to differentiate between writings of AI and humans vis-a-vis?
I'm
Because
telling you,
if you ask me,
yes. I
if you
think
ask me,
what,
I won't be able to differentiate. Like personally,
yes.
I won't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think we all have to, somewhere draw a line, because this is very scary. It has gone beyond ethics. And I feel this taking over by AI has to stop somewhere. But it's almost like a juggernaut, because I don't know where we can stop that. And it's very difficult to distinguish between what is written by AI, unless we have some licensing or copywriting procedure where you have to declare that this has been written by AI. So we have many of our lecturers who have come forward and spoken about the redundancy of any news writer, or a teacher, for example, of also of creative writers. I mean, you just use AI, use the chatbot, and the first thing I tell my students in the classroom is that please keep away from ChatGPT. So that's all we can as of now. But later on, perhaps we would find methods of keeping it or finding whether it is ChatGPT or whether it is original or authentic. I don't think I can answer your question entirely.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Makes a
Is
lot
it?
of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't you
Thank
think
you.
so? I really don't think
Yeah. Of
we.
course, ma'am. Of course.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Amit Pandey is asking, uh, is in Withering Heights by
Wuthering
Emily
Heights.
Bronte,
Yeah.
yeah, Heathcliff is a victim of precarity. Is it right? I
Okay.
mean, the precarious
I wish
literature.
I could know much more about what precarity is, if, to answer that question. Perhaps yes. In fact, what I find in this whole idea, unless I am sure of it, I don't think I should. I can speak about it. But then, from what I have understood, well, the marginalized are the precarious or precarious. I'm not sure whether it is the marginalized or whether it is.
Of course, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely, ma'am.
Yeah, it is the marginalized. So what we
Yes,
had
ma'am.
in terms
The
of,
subordinated people.
Yeah, subaltern people, isn't it?
So yes, yes,
Yeah,
madam.
yeah. There are so many. Even if you take Dickens to start with, there's so many people whom, if that
Because
goes,
they have no employment and nothing.
yes, yes. So the marginalized, the people who are deprived of a good life, perhaps, or
Yes,
challenged
and those
physically.
people belong to periphery. They
Yes, peripherals.
struggle a lot
Yeah, right.
to
They
earn
can't.
their.
Their voices are muted, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly, madam.
yeah.
Ma'am, I have a question,
I'll
madam.
check that out. Yeah.
Ma'am, could you please clear what intertextuality to Mary Shelley and what to T.S. Eliot is?
Who is Mary? What did you say? I didn't get it.
What intertextuality to Mary Shelley and what to T.S. Eliot is? Is it same for both of them, madam?
Mary Shelley.
Mary Shelley.
Yeah. Actually, if you think in terms of you talking about Frankenstein.
Exactly, madam. Exactly, madam.
You're talking about Frankenstein, and in Frankenstein also there's a bit of everything, but it's very different from what Eliot would do. T.S. Eliot, isn't it?
Yes, madam.
Eliot was like, deliberate uh, hijacking of many lines to make his own. Shelley's was very original, I thought. Mary Shelley's.
Okay.
What do you think?
Yes, madam. I too, madam.
Yeah.
Because madam,
Okay,
someone alleged him, it's Charles Baudelaire, I think, madam. He
Baudelaire.
alleged,
Yeah.
Charles Baudelaire. He alleged T.S. Eliot that whatever
Yeah.
is
What did
good
he
in
say?
whatever is good in T.S. Eliot's poetry, he has borrowed from somewhere else.
Exactly, borrowed from not Baudelaire. Was it Baudelaire? I'm sure. I'm not sure. So he speaks about saying that the best lines are by other hands.
Yes, madam.
Other
Exactly.
minds, yeah.
Whatever is good in his poetry,
Yeah, right.
borrowed from
Yeah.
somewhere,
And, yeah, true.
and he is not ready to give any credit for that.
Yeah, but he made it his own. Actually, you can see it's like you weave a cloth, or you make a dress. You take things from everywhere. It's called bricolage, and you take things and make it your
Bricolage,
own.
madam. Bricolage.
Bricolage.
BRI, madam.
BRICO.
By
Bricolage. It's a
Claudie
French word.
Lévi-Strauss.
LAG.
I think it's by Claudie Lévi-Strauss, madam.
Yes.
yes.
Very true.
Okay,
But
ma'am.
madam,
Okay, Amit.
when Mary Shelley, madam, when she actually begins her novel Frankenstein, it's like Prometheus Bound. So there she's actually giving the credit. She's authenticating the already existing idea.
Yeah, from somebody else. Isn't while talking, while speaking, they were, yes. But she's clearly telling us that it is so.
Exactly. Okay, thank you, madam. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amit. Ma'am, there is a question from our sir, Shandip Mandul. Can someone who has done MA in English appear NET exam from comparative literature? And if qualifies, can he apply for assistant professorship job in colleges from comparative literature? This
It's a very
question I
technical
also
question.
want to know.
Technical question.
Yes.
Very technical. I think, of course, setting aside the question, at least in the English literature departments here in India, as assistant professor, you don't have to have such specialization, because a literature department does not have these specialized. You are taken under one basket. Whether you have done literary critical theory, whether you have done Indian literature, whether Indian English literature, as far as I know, at least in Maharashtra universities, It's a composite department. It doesn't have such specialization. I don't know if it is there in other universities in India.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are who? Do you want to say something?
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. We now see that the mythological texts are now retailed by the comparative writers, and they are now mixing with new information. Sometimes they are sometimes mixing with wrong informations are there. So they are. So what is your opinion about that?
See, if they are writing fiction,
yes,
if they are writing a fantasy or a fiction based upon these mythological characters, perhaps it's like your writer's this thing, if you want to. It's up to that liberty. But if it is going beyond a certain level, of course, then you have to use your common sense and your way of what can go beyond it cannot go beyond a certain.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. So it's already 7:27.
Yeah, I know.
And we need to.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, it's such an engaging session, and I learned a lot from it, from comparative literature and all.
It is not possible to condense it into an hour, but whatever I could, I did it in that 1 hour. It's not possible actually. It's a huge thing. So yeah.
I know, ma'am. Literature is an ocean, so
Yeah,
we
it's an
couldn't
ocean,
complete
and
it.
comparative literature is something also beyond
Yeah,
everything.
beyond it.
Yes.
Uh, Whoever has questions, please put on our chat box. Okay, I am going to take a screenshot of it. Okay, and I will send it to ma'am. Whenever ma'am will be free, she will reply, and I will post it in our group, Telegram group. Okay, because we are running out of time, so we need to go for our vote of thanks. Himal, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Well,
Good
yeah.
evening.
Yes.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening,
Ma'am,
everyone. It has been
there will be some formal vote of thanks. So
Yeah.
please bear
Yeah.
with us. Yeah.
Yes, no problem. Well,
It has been such a privilege to be a part of this interesting event. As a representative of the Cultural Studies Research Forum, I would be delighted to extend my wholehearted gratitude to our dignified guest, Dr. Shyamala Nair, Madam. Honestly, a bunch of thanks to you, dear ma'am, for blessing us with your profound knowledge on this adequate field of comparative literature, with a research perspective that unwrap various concepts for learners like us. It's such a pleasure to listen to you throughout the session. We definitely look forward to gather more from you in the upcoming discourses, and we hope you would like it too. And now, I would love to thank patron of Valat, Dr. Kalyani Valat ma'am, who with her enthusiasm and affection is with us always, and she always guides her with best of things in the world. A wide round of applause and thanks to all the participants for your presence. Thank you for making the event a grand success. Don't forget to follow Valat's another free resource, Valat newsletter, for getting new research areas and gaining new perspectives. Now it's time to conclude today's session. Have a great evening ahead. See you and keep learning. Thank you, dear ma'am.
thank you. And thanks to Kalyani also. Thanks to Koel and every one of you. Thanks for being a part of this whole thing. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you a lot. And really, we hope that in future we will have you.
Definitely. More so. Thank you. Bye. Good night.
Yes. And guys, whoever is asking for certificate, we don't have any certificate for our CSRF lecture yet. Okay, so no worries. It's just for gathering knowledge. Okay, thank you for participating.